Okay, right, welcome back to the third part of this tutorial where we are going to be creating our camera tracker, doing some auto tracking and combining that with our manual tracker from our tracking node. Okay, so what I've gone ahead and done, and I've done this before the lesson just to kind of save time so you don't have to watch me doing it. I've actually created a roto paint node. And I've drawn a roto around the face here, and it's about every 10 frames I'm animating it, okay? Now, just a little hint with this is what we're going to use this for is when we plug in our camera tracker, we're going to say only pick up trackers within this area, okay? Otherwise, it'll just put trackers across the whole piece of footage, and it'll, there's contrasting points on the shirt by here, and we just want to limit it to within here. Now, this kind of helps us later as well. So, basically, the tighter you can get this around the head, the better. I've gone for something fairly quick, animating every 10 frames. It's not good practice to just do it every kind of like 10, but for a garbage like this, a garbage mat, it's fine. If you're doing proper roto, where it's, got to be pixel accurate, you don't just go every 10. But anyway, what I've done is I did that, made a roto paint node, new shape, drew it around the actual head, not just on the side, and then I went through and I animated that throughout. So I'll leave you do that, but that is an important part, okay? What a frame to pause on. What I'm going to do after you've done that then, guys, is I'm going to create my camera tracker, and we're just going to talk through some of the stuff in here. So this camera tracker, I'm going to connect the source to my footage, and you can see camera tracker. We've got a load of stuff in here, so let's work through this. So input is the sequence, which we've got. We're gonna, with mask, okay, when we've connected the source, you've got on the side here this little mask input, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook this to my roto paint. By the way, my roto paint, the output is set to alpha, okay? So let's just view my camera tracker. Mask is not good enough. Just input in the mask input. You've got to go in here, and I'm going to say mask inverted alpha. Okay, so then it'll just search within there for those points. The way we can check that is if we come to settings and click preview features. It's just within there. What that's saying is it's going to find features within this mask. So if we come back to camera tracker and do mask alpha, it's going to use that alpha channel. It's not going to put any on the face, so you want it inverted alpha, okay? So it'll just pick up within where we've drawn here. Okay, cool. Let's come back to the camera tracker. Input is fine, 160 to 400. Camera motion, we're going to keep this to free camera because there's rotation and linear, and so free camera we want to keep it to. This was shot with a 16mm lens. So for lens distortion, just for today, I'm going to do separate tutorials on lens distortion and overcoming it. But just for today, there's not a great deal of lens distortion there. There's going to be a little bit, but the 16mm lens is hardly any there, and I'm not close to the edges, and the sort of sides is where you'll see more of it. You will see a little up the top, but it's really not going to affect us. So I'm going to keep lens distortion to no lens distortion. You could put unknown lens if you want, but I'm just going to keep it to no lens distortion. Focal length, I've got it set to unknown constant because that's what it normally is, but I'm going to set it to known because I know that the focal length was constantly 16mm, okay? So if it was unknown varying, that means it changes throughout and you don't know it. Unknown constant is the same throughout, but we know that it's 16mm throughout because that's the lens I used. In terms of the film back size, you've got loads of different presets in here. You've got Nikon DSLRs. This is basically, it's the sensor size, okay? I know this. I was using a GH5, so 17.3 by 13mm. That's the sensor size I was using, okay? So we've set all that input up correctly, and we've told it what camera we're using. The camera details, okay? So next we can go to the settings, okay? And if you haven't already, turn on preview features. This is basically gonna tell you with the settings that it's got by default what features it's gonna pick up on to track. Now, in terms of number of features, default is 150. To be honest, I'm gonna be going at least 1600. Okay, so type that in there, and you'll see we got a lot more. I could even go to 2000. I probably won't. I'll probably go, let's go 1700. Let's give it another 100. Okay. Now detection threshold. This is a slider, and let's hover over, see what it says. Set the threshold to detect features. A high value selects prominent points. A low value selects points that are distinct in a local region. Using a low threshold to spread tracks out can produce more accurate solve. Now, basically, what this is saying, it's debating how contrasty a point or a feature has to be for it to pick it up. So, if I, for example, decrease it right to 0, you can see that it's picking up the more contrasty ones. Whereas if we bring it up here, it's picking up ones which are less contrasting. Okay, so yeah, you can just bring that to wherever you want. It's just to spread the points a bit more evenly. I think I'm going to bring mine to around about 0.3, I think. Yeah, 0.3 is working, spreading them quite well. Then you've got feature separation. Okay, if we hover over, set a required separation to force feature tracks to cover the image. Reduce separation when increasing the number of features to track. So if we bring this down to 2, let's have a look what happens over here. Bring it down to 2, it's basically scattered them more or less evenly. What about 1? That may do it a lot more evenly, yeah. So if we come up to 18, for example, it was on 12 by default. It basically, the eye there's a lot more contrast in this area, so it knows it's going to put more in areas where there's more contrast. Okay, I'm going to probably set mine to, default is 12, okay, but I want mine spread a little bit more around this region and across the head. So I think let's go 8, and yeah, I spread them a bit more. And again, you wouldn't want to come down to 1 because it may well have put them sort of more spread, but to be honest, it's not going to, half of these it's not going to be able to track. So it's finding a balance. I'm going to try 8. I may have to come back and retrack with different values, but I'm going to try number 8. Then the only other one I'm going to look at for now is minimum length. So again, minimum length is set to 3. So it's saying that something only has to be visible as a possible feature to track for 3 frames. But if something's only there for 3 frames, it's probably an anomaly because this is quite slow moving footage. So I'm going to set this minimum length for now to 15, not 315. So that's saying, right, something has to be there for 15 frames for you to track it. So we've set all that. So what we can do now is we can actually come back across to the camera tracker and we can give this a track, okay? And it's going to move throughout the frame, it'll move forward and then backwards, and it'll track all of these points. So I'm going to give mine a track, and I'll pause it because it'll probably take a little bit of time. So mine is tracked in, and you can see as we scroll through, there's a lot of trackers on there, and I'm pretty happy with that. What you'll want to do though, guys, is you'll want to basically scrub through and you'll want to find and see if there's any trackers which you think are going to be problematic. For example, if there was trackers kind of on the sort of neck down here or just on the wood panel in there because your rotor is a little bit wide, you'd want to delete them. So as I scroll through mine, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of having these in the back, on the back of the head, because I think it's just tracking the edge there, to be honest. And again, they're not on for long anyway, so I'm actually going to delete these because I can see these ending up being a bit of a problem later further down the line. So I'm just gonna remove those. You don't want to remove too many of these ones because these ones could actually be picking up points which help the solve. But especially if you look at these two by here, when I scrub through, they're not actually moving around the head, they're just tracking the edge of it. So I will be removing them. And you basically, what you want to do, like I said, is this one, for example, here, this one is actually, it's on the wood, but there. So I'm going to delete that. You want to scrub through, and don't worry about picking up absolutely every single one, because to be quite honest, you won't. And we've got other ways of managing that. But if you see any that are problematic, I'm not a fan of these ones again. Just kind of scrub through and again, look at all these over here. These are actually on the wood paneling. So just scrub through, select a load and delete them, and then we can move on to the next stage. So as I just clean up my trackers, or these features that it's found, I'm going to pause this and I'll catch you later when I've finished. Okay, so I've just very quickly gone through mine, and I think I've cleaned up most of the sort of bad, possibly problematic trackers. I probably could have come and cleaned up some of the ones on the neck down here because I'm not overly concerned about the neck. But for now, that's kind of okay. These are all the ones that are left are all moving in the same sort of way, direction, and manner. So what we want to do now is we actually want to import our user tracks, which we created earlier. So come over to the user tracks, or the manual tracks, but come over to the user tracks window, and within here, you've got a load of options: import tracks, export tracks, import tracker. Now, here's our tracker. So this can take a little bit of time, okay, and it pauses as well, and it looks as if your computer's frozen. Give it time, it will do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click import tracker, and it's selected tracker 1 because there's no other tracker there, and then I'm going to click OK. And like I said, it's going to look like it's frozen. It'll take a little while for some reason, but they will load in here. So I'll pause mine as mine does it as well. Okay, so mine have now all loaded in, and you'll see them here as represented as as sort of big crosses of a different color user tracks. Okay, so what we can do now is we've got our auto tracks, all these features, when we've got our user tracks. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to click solve, and this will combine the two and give us our solved camera, okay, and our points in 3D space. It's going to look at them and it's going to try and determine where each of these points are in a 3D space. All right. So when we do get a solve, we'll get something called an error rate, and that is not saying it's errored. It's going to tell us how high our error is. And 1.12 is actually pretty good. That's actually really good. So I'm really happy with that. And that's probably down to the fact that we were using we denoised it and we put a high pass on there and all that, okay? And that really does tend to help sometimes. But again, if you're finding you've got an error of above above 2, then I would probably look at maybe utilizing some of these earlier methods of drawing out features like the high pass, the color correct. Check out lesson 1, denoising and all that. But yeah, 1.12 is actually really good. So what we're going to do in the next video is I'm going to show you how to get this solve even lower, this camera solve. What this is saying is it's going to error. It's got an error of about 1.1 pixel, so it's going to be sliding by 1.1 pixel, which is actually very low. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can get this down to 0.8 or 0.9 maybe. I'll be happy with 0.9. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to look at how we can reduce the error rate of our solve. So I'll see you in the next video.